So there are two massive games coming out. One of them you probably heard of, Elden Ring, and the other one bubbling away in the background from the Final Fantasy universe is Strangers of Paradise. Now, it's made by Team Ninja, so I'm expecting it to have sort of a similar stylism to that of Neo. If you have a look at the gameplay, you can actually see that it's probably using the same engine, using an educated guess. It is the first of its type. It is an action-orientated Final Fantasy game, and I'm hoping personally that this is a continuation of a new branch into the Final Fantasy series. But today I wanted to just go over the jobs. I did a video breaking down all the jobs that we saw in the trailer, but we do have some more confirmation from the PlayStation blog, so I just wanted to go through them and give you a little bit of an update. If you don't know what jobs are, they're essentially classes in the Final Fantasy series. They give you a role in a specific job that you've got to do when you're doing your fights. And each one of these jobs comes with its own set of unique abilities, its own weapons, and even its own separate set of clothing. And what's great about these jobs is it allows you to kind of tailor the way that you want to play in the game. Now, what's unique about Strangers of Paradise is that you get to actually swap your jobs around on the fly, which tells me two things. One is that you'll have to select certain jobs for certain scenarios, and the other thing is that you'll be able to set up some pretty cool combos, similar to how the Devil May Cry system works. So you might start off bashing down the enemy with the fighter, and then you switch over to finish them off with a big spell from the Black Mage. Now, there are 27 jobs in Strangers of Paradise. They've all got their own playstyle, and they all have their own set of unique abilities. And the devs have confirmed that they are built around you playing the playstyle that you want to play. The first one you start off is the Swordsman, and they made some interesting notes saying that this was the most difficult of the jobs to make. And this simply was because it's the starting job that everyone is going to be going into, meaning that it sets up a precedent for how you move, how you use abilities, and how people get used to the whole playstyle of the game. Now, PlayStation have released a whole set of new jobs that we haven't seen before, and some of these jobs I'm not sure if they are new or I'm just unfamiliar with them, but what I'd like to hear from you is what jobs you're expecting to see in the game and which ones you're most looking forward to play as. So a brand new job that they're putting into the Final Fantasy series that hasn't been put into any of the other games before is known as the Breaker. Now, this job involves you summoning a giant sword called Zantet Sukun, and this is the sword that belonged to the summon Odin that you've probably seen in the previous Final Fantasy games. And this is what the Breaker is all about. You summon this sword using your unique action, and it gives you the potential to one-shot enemies. Now, if you're wondering to yourself, that sounds really OP, if you watch at the game footage, you can actually see that this thing has an incredibly long wind-up time. No doubt there are going to be some other consequences for having some sort of OP blade like this, and I highly doubt that it works on bosses either. Now, the next job, which is unique to Final Fantasy Origins, is the Void Knight. And the Void Knight is basically an anti-magic class. It allows you to guard and use the enemy's magic attacks against them. The guard functionally has multiple uses, so you can either use it to absorb magic attacks and then convert it to your own MP, or you can absorb it and turn it into your own attack. So this is one of the classes I don't imagine people using all the time, but I can certainly see it being used in special circumstances quite effectively. Now, the third and final job that is unique to Final Fantasy Origin is known as the Tyrant. And this job is all about imbuing your weapons with elemental effects. So for example, if your enemy is weak to fire, you can imbue your weapons with fire and give yourself bonus damage versus their vulnerability. The Tyrant is also a fighter class, which is all about punching and spin kicks, and the actual weapons you imbue are your fists. So if you are a fan of fighters in the series, then this is probably a class that you'll be interested in. The next one is probably a class you're more familiar with, especially if you've played the most recent Final Fantasy expansions, and this is the Sage. This is a class that basically allows you to use both black and white magic. This is also the only class, as far as I'm aware, that allows you to use the Ultima magic as well. Now, the Ultima magic requires special conditions. They have not been released, as they aren't giving too much information away on the various jobs, but what I can talk about is the next class, which is the Dark Knight. So the Dark Knight is sticking to its roots, so in typical fashion you get to do big old massive damage attacks, but they all come at a cost, which is your HP. The lower your HP, the more damage you get to do, and has been coined as one of the more advanced classes because of that whole mechanic of risking your HP to do bigger damage. Next up is another familiar one. This is the Paladin. It basically allows you to recover HP as you fight, and completely opposite to the Dark Knight, you actually do more damage the higher your HP is. And yes, it is a sword and shield class, or at least that is what's been showcased so far, and for more Paladin-esque abilities we'll just have to wait until it comes out in the final release. Now, the next two classes are classes I feel that are going to be really popular within the game, the first of them being the Ninja. The ninja basically gets access to tools, and the tools allow you to inflict ailments on enemies without consuming MP. The tools are not unlimited, but you do get to replenish them. You can find them in cubes scattered around the environment. And they also have the ability to divert ailments. Now, I'm not sure what that means, whether or not you get attacked, you can then put them on another enemy. But either way, with the sword and just, the general ninja aesthetic, I'm actually looking forward to see how they've implemented this. Now, the last class is the Thief. You get a pair of daggers, quick movement, and also comes with the ability to steal instant abilities from the enemies. So, find an enemy with a powerful ability, you can steal it and use it against them. Thief also comes with the ability to increase the drop rate of items. So if you're someone who likes to collect armor or loot, or you just want to farm it, then this is probably a class that you want to pick up. And that's pretty much it for all the new classes in Strangers of Paradise. In terms of how you unlock these characters, now it is based on a skill tree, so you have your initial class, you put points into it, and eventually you get to unlock other classes by going through the trees. Some classes require you to unlock multiple classes to get access to them, for example Samurai, and I imagine that some of them are a lot more powerful than others, so as you go through the game and advance it later on down the line, you'll get access to the more powerful jobs. So you don't end up with a situation where you just have a really powerful class from the start and you've got no incentive to use the other ones. Now, I'm not making any assumptions about this because this game could end up just being absolutely horrible, and I've been burnt so many times recently making just broad brush stroke assumptions about games, whether or not they'll be good or not. But what I can say is it does look pretty, and I'm really excited about a game in the Final Fantasy universe that isn't of its, atypical genre. But Team Ninja haven't let us down so far, and I'm really excited to see what they have done. And I will be picking this up and doing a review of it, regardless if we get access to a review key or not. But until then, have a great week everyone, and I'll be back with more news and reviews soon.